Good afternoon, Major League Fantasy Baseball owners. After a very busy week of drafting and a couple of headaches with the drafts, legal rosters, people changing their lineups during the draft, causing some of the drafts to reload. Of course, that can create a problem. Obviously, this week I've come up with some solutions. I've been thinking about how do we shore up some of those areas and make sure that those aren't problems for us in the future. The illegal rosters thing was a little bit more of a problem than I was anticipating this year. Now, in League One, even in League One, one of our a lot of our perennial veteran owners or whatever, we had about, I think, 3 or 4 teams in that league that ended up drafting more at a certain position than they were allotted. It was a little bit more egregious in League Two. With some of those positions. League Three, there was a few teams too that did as well, but it was there was only a couple teams that had illegal rosters for drafting over their limits at position. Some of them had illegal rosters just because of where they put the players, and that was easily fixed by just going and changing your lineup around. League Four as well, there was a couple of issues last night as well. People overdrafting certain positions. So by and large, the overdrafting of positions was maybe 25% or so after going back and reviewing everything, but it's still a problem one way or the other. So what I actually did last season, I had a setting to where I wouldn't allow you to overdraft at a certain position, and it would stop you from doing that. But at the end of the day, it also creates some functionality issues as well. So I wanted to open that back up. So we're going to change that and make sure that the illegal rosters in regards to drafting, like say, for instance, more than 3 left fielders with primary left field, eligibility, and same thing with starting pitching, very same thing. You can have 7 primary starting pitchers with that bolded SP next to them. If you go above and beyond that, obviously you can't have any. So there's a couple things. There's 2 little settings that I'm going to put on for our drafts moving forward. So those will no longer be an issue at all. I'll show those really quickly. And then I'll get into some of the roster functionality and a couple of things that you guys all need to be aware of and know where to find certain things. So I'm going to share my screen real quick and we'll go over this. Let's see here. Okay, so here, what we're going to be changing this to during the draft, it says prevent any transaction that would cause a roster to become illegal. I had it set for only total max players. It's for a couple of reasons. But anyway, not to get into too much detail about that, what we'll do is we'll select and put it on always next year during the drafts. So it would be impossible for you to go over that limit. It would be completely impossible for you to go over that limit. But what you need to be careful with when you're drafting in the draft room, when we have that restraint on, is you need to make sure that the players that you are picking, you are putting them in the proper positions in your roster column on the right, or that may create a problem as well. Basically, all you have to do is pay attention and, go to the, maybe do a mock draft, get used to the draft software. That's another thing I anticipated that may be a little difficult for some people moving from, say, like ESPN or Yahoo or something, and they're used to, or maybe even CBS, they're used to one way of doing things. And, that's just a difference of, when you move from, for instance, like you move from one job to a new career or vice versa. I mean, there's going to be some growing pains and, a little bit of lead time in you learning how to function properly. It's the same thing here. It just takes a little bit of time, but once you get used to it, it won't be a problem at all. So that's the fix for the draft. We just switch this to, let's see. So you'll see it. See where it says prevent any transaction that would become a roster become legal always. That's what we'll switch it to. So boom, problem solved. Won't happen again. Okay. This is what it's going to stay on for during the season though. This only for total max players. And the next thing was the lineup changes. I actually figured that out, what I could do with that on Wednesday after the draft, and I fixed it for the next 2 drafts. So I might have even fixed it for Wednesday night's draft, but team permissions, I can restrain your lineup changes. So I had this check marked during the draft. So when I do that, that means you can't make any lineup changes on your roster page. You still can make lineup changes within the draft room, and it wasn't a huge deal. But it's when you went back to your team roster page when it became a problem. that became a big problem. So that both of those problems solved. Boom, boom. We won't have those problems moving forward. So I do apologize to anybody that had some difficulties with that, but I think by and large the drafts went pretty well considering some of the little quirks and issues that we've had. What I want to do really quickly is discuss the picking up and dropping of players and adding them to your team. But the first place I wanted to start was my team preferences, and there's a couple things that I'm going to have you guys do in here. My team preferences is found under the team drop-down menu. Okay, it says my team preferences. You click on it, it takes you right here. This is where you can change your avatar and your team name. Every single person in the league needs to have their privacy settings unchecked. So if you don't have these 3 boxes unchecked, make sure you do so and click on this little blue save button here. Anytime you change something in here, make sure you click the save button. Don't forget to do that. When you come down into this section here, this is your general preferences, and this is how you can customize your experience, say on your team roster page. On the player screen is the free agent pool, essentially, and your live scoring screen as well. A couple of things. You can play around with these different tools and figure out what you like to see. If you want to see just what we score, if you want to see all the analytical tools I added, you can switch your default scoring categories to track, but you can also change those on your team roster page as well. Here on your team roster page, you're going to see a bunch of little selections and different ways you can customize the points and the numbers that you see. I like to keep mine on scored, but if you want to go over to tracked, it's going to add a whole different level of numbers and tools for you to use right here on your page. So keep that in mind. Keep that functionality in mind and understand how it works. And again, you can change it in here so it defaults to exactly what you want to see, and then you can just toggle back and forth on your team roster page. But you do have control of that. And also show first unlocked lineup period by default. I have mine unchecked because I want my default to show me, even though the games have started that day, I want it to show me the numbers for that day. So that's why I have that unchecked. But if you prefer the next day, check it and save it. Show extra confirm window on lineup changes. I always have this checked, and I'm going to recommend that every single person have that box checked. Every single person. So when you make a lineup change, another box comes up and asks you, "Are you sure you want to make this change?" And it gives you any information you need in regards to if there's a negative or if you're creating some sort of a illegal roster setting or something. It'll give you that. It'll pop up and remind you. Apply lineup changes to future periods by default. That's, again, totally up to you. But also, when you make a lineup change, here, let's see. Okay, so when you make a lineup change, the first period, and I want to move, for instance, oh, why is it not letting me move anybody? Make 3. Just make sure I don't have the lineup restraints on week 3 still. Nope. But when you want to change a player and you click on the little arrows over here that allows you to change the player, another box is going to pop up. Now, let me see. If I go to League 1, here we go. So in League 1, if I want to change Salvador Perez, let's see, let's find another guy. Let's see, I want to do this. I'm switching Panique and Kinsler. And then I hit submit changes. This box will pop up, and then you'll also have apply to future periods right here. It'll be sitting right in this little box. You click on that, that means that it's going to apply that player to future periods. The only problem with that sometimes is when it does that. Let's see if I can come up with an example for you here. Okay, so I applied this to future periods. Sometimes what will happen is it will have Kinsler and Panique still in the lineup. Very rarely that would happen. You just switch the guys back in and out. Okay. And then you also see here this little warning sign. If you have an illegal roster, you're going to see this warning sign at the top, and it'll tell you why you're illegal. It'll give you the exact reason why. So, like for instance, like here, it says the minimum number of 21 active players has not been met. The maximum number of 5 reserves has been exceeded. So I've got 6 guys on my bench, but I have a hole here in my active spot. So it's very simple. You just move, boom, boom. hit submit changes, add future periods. And then obviously you go in every day and you customize your roster. Okay. You switch from day to day here. So that stuff all works pretty good. You won't have too much of a trouble with that if you're just kind of following the, paying attention basically. So in your My Team preferences, have your extra confirm window on lineup changes for your team roster screen checked. Apply future changes to future periods by default. I would leave that unchecked and just do it as needed when you're making your changes. But obviously it's up to you how you want to do it. Let's see. Okay, player screen. This is your free agent pool. So in your free agent pool, you can obviously change your default for what you see for the player's numbers. So if you just want to see what that player's put up during this lineup period, which is from Monday to Sunday every week, it'll show just those numbers by default. Obviously, you could change those things as well when you go to the players tab. So when you're on the players tab, you could change year to date, by period, by date. You click on, well, by period. There's haven't been any periods yet, but once the season starts, you can do it by period and by date, and you can do whatever period and whatever stretch of time that you want to do. So that's pretty easy to use. You can also change the amount of guys you see on each individual page right here, but you can also change your preferences right here on your player screen to default number of results every time you go to the page. So like I have mine set on 50 for League 3. And defaulted viewed positions, I have it on pitchers. You can set it to whatever you want. So when you first click on the players page, if you have it on all, it'll show all the players, hitters and pitchers. Or if you want to do it the other way, like how I have it set on pitchers. But obviously, like I said, you could toggle back and forth between, whomever you want anyway, right here. And here's also another little tool, your stats tool. You can go back all the way back to 2007 playoffs and regular season for these players as well. And for those of you who haven't looked at the player cards, your player cards are going to have a lot of information on them as well. Your stats tab, your splits tab. Has a decent amount of splits. I still use a good amount of Fangraphs. They've got some good analytical tools and more splits to look at, but that's a nice quick little reference. Okay, your default status, I have it on all available players. I think that's more. Everybody should have it on that. But if you want to look at all the players and even the own ones, change it there. Live scoring screen. This is another one. Everybody change your default live scoring stat view to scored instead of tracked. If you have it on track, there's so many different stats along with the ones we scored that are in there. It makes it a little confusing to look at. So I would keep it on scored, change it to scored. I have it on, today active players playing. You can do all players playing active. You just play around with this on the live scoring tool. You can change it as you want. Default live scoring time frame, I have it for the period, the entire period. But if you want, when you click on it just to see what happens that day, and you want that by default, you can change that here. This is a very important one, claims and drops. Everybody put your default claims per group to 1. Okay, and I'll show you what that means just here in just a second. But it's actually a nice tool. You just have to learn how to use it. So default max claims per group 1. Show extra confirm. This is a very important one. Show extra confirm window on claim and drop. Every single person in the league needs to have this checked. Every single person. Have this checked and this have at 1. Okay. Now down here in the email preferences, you're going to see a bunch of different. These aren't available yet. The standings are not available yet. Neither of these on the bottom. But these are all emails that you'll get direct emails when any of this stuff happens. And you can obviously customize this for whatever it is that you want to receive via email. So that's up to you. I mean, I would want to know, everybody needs to have your roster is illegal checked, because you'll get an email and the software will tell you, hey, your roster is illegal, go fix it. A player enters the free agent pool. I like that one. Player goes on waivers, new player enters the player pool. What that means is a player that wasn't in the player pool to begin with, like say like a Cuban player or something that's purchased by a team like the middle of the season that's not in the player pool, they'll add that person into the player pool and you're going to email when he shows up. So obviously you can go through these things at your leisure and figure out what it is that you like. And then obviously at the bottom, as you hopefully have been changing some things as this video is going along, maybe you have another window open hopefully. But anyway, click the save button, make sure that everything that you've done is taken. Okay. So when you're on your team page too, you're going to see you have a lot of different things that you can change here. Different things that you can do, and you customize this as you go right on your team page. But that My Team Preferences is very, very important. Let's go to the player pool real quick. And I think there's, let's see, let's go to League 3. I think League 3 might still be in waivers, maybe. No, League 4 will be, though. Champions League will be as well. All right. Player pool. Okay, so all these players are on waivers just after the draft. You're going to see after some time, you'll notice that waivers are not a huge issue with the baseball leagues because we have a free-for-all system. But when a player is released, it will be on waivers for a couple of days. So it can crop up on you here and there where you need to figure this out. So you see here, I have a full roster of people, my entire team. This is my league. This is my team in the Champions League. Okay, all full. I don't have anybody in injured reserve. You know, everything's where it's supposed to be. And you'll notice here that I've got 4, 5, 6. I have 7 starting pitchers, 7 primary SP, so I have the limit. And then relief pitchers, I've got 6. So I still have the ability to pick up one more relief pitcher if I want to, but I'm going to have to do something in regards to my bench on offense if I really wanted to add that guy or drop another starting pitcher. So since these players are on waivers, let's say, for instance, let's say I wanted to pick up, again, this is just for an example. Let's say I wanted to pick this guy up here. So I pick him up. And then I come down to this list. Okay, now notice something when you're looking at the drop move list. This drop move list is exactly in order as your active roster is. So what Fantrax does need to add is they need to add, instead of status just active, they need to add the position that they're in yet, but that's not there, that they're sitting in. But all you have to do is remember, you know, it's catcher, first base, second, third, short, infield, left, center, right, outfield, utility. And you'll see that the guys have those eligibilities there. So, you know, you'll have an idea of who's where. And then obviously you can just have another window open. See, is that, yeah, that's Major League Baseball. So you have another window open looking at your team. You can kind of see it here too. I mean, you know that you've got these guys on your bench. And you'll notice under the claim drop section on the bottom, and pitching's in the same order, obviously. There's 4 SP positions, then there's 5 RP, and then there's the utility where Shelby Miller is, and then these are the bench guys. And it says reserve next to these guys. Okay? So it says reserve. Now, let's say, for instance, I want to pick up Mike Morin. And let's see, Jake Petrika, this is another thing everybody needs to pay attention to, is that day-to-day guys, you don't have to be listed on the DL or the IR or whatever to be put on the DL in our leagues. You can put day-to-day guys on the DL in our leagues for a very good reason. You guys will figure this out as the season goes along. But let's say I wanted to pick up Mike Morin, but I also, at the same time, while picking him up, I wanted to move Petrika because he's eligible to go on our DL. I click on him. I hit submit transaction. Now, if you did what I asked in regards to my team and my team preferences under the claims and drop section and have the extra window come up, this is what pops up. So you're going to see Mike Morin. Okay, the position I want him to go in. I know that Petrika's in a relief pitcher's position right now. So this is where he's stationed, right? Petrika, sorry, is here. He's in a relief pitcher spot. So I want Mike Morin to go in for Petrika, but I don't want to drop Petrika, and I don't want to put him on the bench because I know already got 5 men on my bench. So what I want to do is I want to move him to injured reserve. So instead of dropping him or trying to put him on my bench and creating, you know, an illegal roster, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that. So I know that that's not going to process, and it tells you when those waivers process. It said March 29th at 3 a.m. So I know that that's when that's going to happen. Now, let's say, for instance, I think there's a bunch of guys that are hot to trot, okay, to get him. So let's say I go and pick up another guy. Let's say And the relief pitcher. Let's say I want this guy here. Oh, let's go with Torres. It doesn't really matter, but let's go with him. But I don't want both of these guys. I just want the one. Okay, I just want one of these guys that I'm picking up. So I'm gonna go back to Patrica again. Okay, move to injured reserve. Again, I want to move him to injured reserve. But see how it's showing P right here? But we know Patrica's in the relief pitcher spot. He's not in the P spot. He's in a relief pitcher spot. Okay, so we want Torres. You have to pay attention to these positions here. So we want Torres to go into the relief pitcher spot and Patrica to the injured reserve. The maximum number of 5 active RP will be exceeded. Are you sure that you want to complete this action? Let's go with okay from this point. Oops, what league was this? Oh, crud, I did that in the wrong league. Good Lord. All right, transaction. And this is another thing you guys need to understand too. Sorry about that. When there's a mistake like that, like the mistake that I just made, and it's an honest mistake, we can undo. The commissioner can go in and undo the trade, which would also, or undo the move, excuse me, which would also take away the money that it costs too. So keep that in mind. My apologies for that. Okay, we're on the right team now. So I'm going to Patrica here. Let's go back to this league. We'll go to the player pool. And I'll just grab whoever. We already did Morin. Let's go with this guy here. Okay, we know Patrica's in the relief pitcher spot on my roster. Here. We're going to submit the transaction. All right, so on this same screen, and you can find this anywhere, you can go to the transactions counter or the transactions menu, and you'll see pending transactions here, and then it'll still be on this drop move screen as well. So under pending transactions, let's go look at this. I only want one of these guys, just one. So what I'm going to do is I have my max claims per group at 1. Okay, and the group is 1. You can change the groups. You can have up to 20 different groups. So I only want the one guy. So if this guy goes through, if Mike Morin does go through, it'll automatically kick out this next guy because this is saying to the software, this number here, that I only want one of these 2 players here. I only want one. Okay, and if you're trying to pick up other players, say at different positions, let's do another example here. Claim drop players. Let's go back to the player pool. And let's say I wanted to pick up, let's see, what do I possibly need offensively here? All right, let's say I wanted to get rid of Joe Panique. I got Lowry. Let's say I was really in love with Lowry. And let's say I wanted to pick up a left. Let's say I want to pick up a left fielder. Okay, everybody's still on waivers. Again, these will all clear in a few days, but let's say I wanted to pick up Hara, who's got left field eligibility, but I wanted to get rid of Panique. I go down to where the bench is listed here. I click on him. Hit submit transaction. Now in this situation, I can't put Panique on the IR obviously because he doesn't have a red flag or a red flag with a plus sign in it. And left field draw in this situation, it doesn't really make much of a difference if you change Para's position, because he's listed as left fielder, but he's going is reserve, so he's going to the bench. Okay, so he'll be going to the bench. Same situation. Now let's go back to the player pool again. Let's find another guy. Maybe somebody else is interested in getting him. So I'm going to go with left fielder. Okay, let's say Dustin Ackley. Same situation. And let me give you another scenario. Maybe I don't like Dustin Ackley as much as I like Panique, but I know I need a player at a certain position. And let's say I wanted to drop Ghost instead for Ackley. Ghost, we're dropping. Ackley is going into the reserve, to the bench, because that's where these players are already positioned, is on the bench. Okay. reserve, bench. Now let's go back to pending transactions again. Okay, and you'll see when you go back to pending transactions, this is where you guys need to pay attention. Now that you've got max claims per group at 1, and you'll see that, well, these 2 pitchers here, I want to replace Patrica and put him on the IR, but I want to also make a one position, position move, for your everyday guys. You're going to want to change these groups. You change this group to 2. Okay. And you put these guys in order that you would want them. So in this situation, I think Gerardo Parra is worth picking up for the value of Joe Panique, but I think Dustin Ackley is worth picking up for the value of Ghost. But I only want one of these guys, just one. Or maybe if you wanted to, all you would have to do is just do that. And then if you win the claims, then you'd get both of them. But if you only want one of the 2, your max claims per group is going to be set at 1. You'd set up separate groups because you want one relief pitcher to take the place of Patrica in this example. And then you would want one more position player. But you have your values are different between these players, so you switched it up a little bit in regards to who you're dropping. So, and in order, okay, you see order 1, order 2. That means the waiver order, if you win it, this guy will be taken first. And if that happens, then this one will be deleted. If it happens that Mike Moran, you didn't win that claim, you would then it would then attempt to claim Maki for you. You would get him if you won the claim. If you didn't win the claim for either one, you wouldn't get anybody in this first group. The second group, same situation. The order is, wherever they're set in this order is who the software is going to the move they're going to try to make first. If none of the moves can be made, you don't get any players. If the first move is kicked out, you get the second guy if you win the claim. Your max claims per group say you're taking one guy out of each group here. And here's your order. Okay, it's really not all that hard to use. It's nice because you can customize exactly what you want to happen in regards to picking up these players, and you can really cover your butt with a lot of waiver claims if you really need to fill a spot and you think that there's other guys that are going after those players. Well, you can go ahead and use the system. Okay, I obviously don't want to make any of these changes, so what I'm going to do is, if you want to cancel them, you go over to the side, you click cancel. Save changes, and you're done. Okay. So in regards to the rosters and picking up players on waivers, which again, you're not going to run into this very often. Okay. Because you look in League 1, Leagues 1, 2, and 3, the waivers have already cleared. Okay. You look here, there's nobody on waivers. But guys, there's a couple of guys. So you got Thayer and Dan Herron and Andrew Haney. But you're not gonna be making a ton of waiver claims throughout the season because it's a free-for-all system. But you do need to understand the functionality of it for sure, so you don't have any issues. And also understanding how to maintain your roster, understanding how to move your players, where to figure out, how do I change my team preferences, et cetera, and how to control all of this stuff. So if something happens and you pick up a player on waivers and you forget to put him in the right position. And then, for instance, let's say a couple of guys had this issue in several leagues where instead of you having one CF right here, somehow, for some reason, there was 2 CFs. And you're like, wow, how the heck would that happen? And then there's a little yellow box up here that says you have too many center fielders in your lineup. Simply, all you need to do is just take one of the extra center fielders, move them to the bench, click submit changes. The yellow box will go away and your lineup will be legal. Okay? When you run into that situation, you'll know it. If you have any questions, you can obviously contact us directly, and we'll be able to, help you with that. But again, once you get used to using it, this is all very small stuff. By and large, very, very, very small stuff. The last thing is your My League preferences. This is the same type of thing, except instead of you customizing your team pages and your team preferences, you're customizing the way the home page looks. Okay, so you could drag and drop these boxes. The only ones you can't move are league polls and the commissioner messages. You can't. That's always going to be at the top, commissioner messages. Okay. What I want people to do is to make sure that they have the league article section. Make sure you have that section somewhere near the top to the middle of the page, because that's where I'm going to be posting these videos, and that's going to have a lot of direct links for our leagues and rules pages and all of that good stuff. So make sure you keep an eye on the league article section, which is on in my league here for my team. I have it set just underneath the message form. So I have obviously the polling section in the league commissioner message stay at the top. I have the live chat second. I have the message forum third, and then I have the article section here, which is where all these videos are going to go, which is where this video is going to be when I'm finished. So keep those things in mind. Get to know the lay of the land a little bit. Try to take a little extra time to understand everything. Once the season gets started, gets rolling, you got a good week. You got about 7 days or so, 7 or 8 days to get ready for the season. So play around with it a little bit. Get comfortable with it. If there's any questions, any concerns, anything along those lines, obviously you can contact us if you're in League 4. Joanne owns your commissioner. League 3, it's Ron McLeese. I'll be commissioning League 1, League 2, and the Champions League. So let us know if there are any questions. Hopefully this video was helpful. I know I kind of stumbled a little bit over a couple things, but I know we went through a lot. If you need anything in the meantime, just let me know, guys.